Hey there, God bless you. I'm Karine. Thank you for being here. Welcome. So today I'm going to be talking about things you need to know when learning a new language. In this case, I'm going to be more specific and I'm going to talk about the English language. But of course, this applies to any language that you want to learn or are working on learning. And pretty much these things also apply to anything, not just language, anything that you want to learn. Okay, so first let me give a little bit of background about myself and why I am a person who actually can speak about these things. So the tips that I'm about to give you to improve your language, to learn a new language, are tips that I actually learned myself from trial and error. I came to the United States of America when I was 15 years old, 3 months short of turning 16, and I did not speak any English. Well, let's say that I probably knew about 10 sentences. Hello, how are you? What is your name? My name is Karine. How old are you? I am 15, and things like that, those little things. But with those 10 sentences, I used to also combine and make other sentences. And so I will be talking about that in a later video. Because this is not going to be the only video that I'm going to make about learning a new language, about learning English or learning Spanish or whichever language it is that you want to learn. But of course, like I said, I'm going to be focusing in English because that is the language that I learned when I came to the United States. I only spoke Spanish and I pretended back in the Dominican Republic that I spoke English. I could do that with my friends who were non-English speakers, and that just reminds me of how passionate I was about the language. I actually was not the only one who used to pretend that we spoke English. I did have a few other friends, my cousins, one of my cousins also. We actually will start having conversations in English, and really none of us, I couldn't understand her, she couldn't understand me, but it just sounded pretty. I think the English language is a beautiful language, and as a little girl I remember when I used to hear people speak English, I just used to be mesmerized. I was like, oh my God, such a beautiful language, such beautiful sounds. I used to think these things in my head. And so I am grateful that a few years later, at the age of 15, I came to the United States of America, and this was one of my main goals, of course, to learn the language and to learn it well. And it's a language that I love. Anyway, enough talking about, that I love the language. So let's talk about the tips. Okay, Zoe's here with me. All right, so the first tip when you are learning English or any language is make mistakes. Please do not be afraid to make mistakes. When you are learning a new language, you will sound funny, you will sound silly. You may feel embarrassed and you may want to withhold from speaking the new language that you're speaking. Please don't. Please do not make the mistake of not speaking the language just because you sound silly or funny or whatever. You need to, the more mistakes you make, the better. The more mistakes you make when learning a new language, the better, because that just means that you're practicing, you're putting yourself out there, you're being bold, you're not being afraid of sounding silly. Sounding silly or looking silly is not getting on the way of your goal. You see, your goal is to learn the language, and in order for you to do that, you need to speak it, you need to practice it, no matter how you sound, okay? Also, the thing is that when you speak the language that you are learning and you make mistakes, yes, you may find some bullies, but you will also find amazing people who will laugh with you, not at you. I actually, in high school, was blessed. I had an amazing English teacher in high school. And I remember on my first day of school, I was petrified. I did not know how the school system here worked. It was different than what I was used to back in the Dominican Republic. And I had to go from class to class. So when I finished one class, I had to go to another room and so on. And one of my classes was music, actually. And on my first day, when I went to the music class, and I gave the schedule to my music teacher, I said to him, "Hi, I am a student new." So of course I made the sentence myself, right? I found, okay, student, new, but I put it as if I was speaking. I structured the sentence as if I was speaking Spanish. And so I said, "Hi, I am a student new." And so the teacher looked at me and then he said, "Oh, you're a new student." So I was supposed to put the adjective new in front of the noun student. I am a new student. But instead I said, "I am a student new." However, the teacher understood me. You see, I said it, I spoke it grammatically correct. But the teacher understood what I said and he corrected me. And that was like one of the first corrections that I had there, because I exposed myself. I put myself out there. "Hi, I am a student new." "Oh, you are a new student." I was, yeah. So yes, and then I happened to meet some students, two of them I remember, who sat next to me, and they were just nice and kind. And every time that I had this music class, I will speak a few words with them. And I remember one thing that they said to me, and they said, they used to speak Spanish also. They were like bilingual, but they didn't speak too much Spanish. They were American kids whose parents were Hispanics. And that happens, that's something that unfortunately happens a lot here in the United States. There are a lot of children, American children, who are born and raised here in the United States, and they are the children of Hispanic parents, and yet they don't speak Spanish well. They don't speak Spanish fluently. But anyway, we are focused on English right now. But it was just shocking to me. Or they would like understand the language. They will understand Spanish, but they wouldn't speak it. And most of these kids that I found, or teenagers, they understood. They say, "Oh, I understand the language. I understand Spanish. I just don't speak it." And to me, what I think was like, I'm afraid to speak it. That's really, eventually, that's how I translated that. Like, I'm afraid to speak it. I'm afraid to sound funny or silly. And so I listen and I understand, but I'm not gonna speak it, because since Spanish for them was not their first language, of course it was gonna sound maybe funny, but it's okay. It's okay if you sound funny. Anyway, let's go back to English. So this same two girls that that were students and were they became my friends in the music class. They told me one time, they said, "We love that you are not afraid to speak, even if you sound funny. Like, you are brave." And I did not think of me as being brave. I just knew, like, I have to learn this language. I am in the US now, and if I want to be successful in this country, I have to learn English. That was my goal. I did not care how I sounded. I am pretty sure many times I did sound stupid. I'm pretty sure probably some teachers in other classes, they probably thought like, okay, is she supposed to be in this class, or what are we dealing with here? Because again, I had just come from the Dominican Republic, and I did not speak the language well. I will just put words together. I had a dictionary. It was Spanish English dictionary, and it was pretty much the words were in English and then also they were in Spanish. And back then we didn't have smartphones, and so we didn't have smartphones, so I had to my dictionary was really my go-to. I used to go with that dictionary everywhere, and I used to look up a word. Like when I wanted to know, oh, what does this mean, I would just look it up, and then I will see the word in English. The only thing is that when in English things are written in one way and they are pronounced in a different way, and in Spanish you speak it the way you see it, that's how you say it. Like a is not gonna change to a. The phonetic of English is a lot more complex than Spanish. Spanish, I think, is super easy to learn. But anyway, the one thing that helped me the most was really that I just spoke the language and I was not afraid to speak. And so you have to feel comfortable with making mistakes. Making mistakes when you're learning a new language is not a failure. It is not a failure. I don't know why we live in a society where making mistakes is looked upon as like, oh, as something bad. When you are learning things, you're gonna make mistakes. As a matter of fact, that's how we learn. That's how we learn a new language. That's how we learn a new skill, making mistakes at first. If you expect someone who does not have the skill, who has never practiced something, who has never done something, if you expect them to do them perfect from the first time, you're putting a lot of pressure in them. And so again, I just think that with me, it was just the fact I was hungry to learn this language. I wanted it so bad. I used to dream with it. I did not care. And I did have other friends who also were learning English, and these people will not speak. They will say like, oh, we understand the English, talking about the English now. Oh, nosotros entendemos, pero no me gusta hablarlo. I was like, what? Like, you need to speak the language. That's how you're gonna learn it. All right, so yeah, so making mistakes is not a failure. The more mistakes you make, the better, because it means you are practicing. Making mistake is part of the development process. So yes, anyway, the next tip is practice, and it goes hand in hand with Zoe. Okay, mommy. Okay. The next tip is practice, and this goes hand in hand with making mistakes, because if you don't practice, you're not going to make mistakes. But if you don't practice, you're not going to learn. If you don't practice, you're not going to get better. So you have to practice. Also, watch TV. Watch TV in English. Watch TV in the language that you are learning. Watch TV. Find out 1 or 2 or 3 of your favorite shows in that language, and on the category that you enjoy. For example, if you love comedy, find yourself some movies, some funny movies, or series that are funny and watch them, that you enjoy. Or if you like topics about medicines and things like that, Grey's Anatomy. When I came to the United States, I loved Sister Sister. Oh yes, I learned English listening to Sister Sisters. And I just thought that they were so beautiful with their curly hair and identical looking sisters, and it was a beautiful series, and I used to watch them. And initially I did not understand much, but I watched them and I started understanding little by little. One thing that so this tip, I actually got it from my English teacher, Mr. Furby. He told us his bilingual class that he was teaching English as a second language to. He said, watch TV in English. Watch TV in English, even if you do not understand, because your ears are going to get used to the sound. Your ears are going to become acute to the sound. They're going to start identifying, capturing these sounds. So, and also spoken words, especially on TV, people speak so fast. And at first you feel like, really, like I'm never gonna get this. But what happens again, your ears start getting used to, they capture these sounds and they're gonna be registering these sounds. Plus you're listening to native speakers of the language. So that's also an amazing thing. And now with YouTube, that's something that you can do from anywhere in the world. You can watch anything on YouTube on pretty much any language. So if you are learning a language, use YouTube to learn that language. Use YouTube and watch people talk, how they express themselves on that target language that you want to learn. Back in those days, there was no YouTube, it was TV. So if someone was in the Dominican Republic and wanted to learn English, they didn't have easy access to watch TV in English unless it was someone who had cable and could afford to pay cable. And let me tell you, I don't know nowadays, but back in those days, not many people had cable, okay? We watched TV for free and that was, and it was in Spanish, okay? So yes, take advantage of the technology and of the tools that are available to you nowadays and use them to your advantage. One thing though that I did when I came to the United States and I was learning the language, and you can do now, and I was able to do back then, was to listen to music in English, in the target language, in the language that I wanted to learn. I listened, and this was actually a tip that another friend of mine from school who also was learning the language, she actually told this to me. She said, listen to, get yourself a CD with your favorite artist and start listening, or your favorite music, and start listening to the lyrics, write them down. But you know, I don't use CDs like that anymore because with technology, we stream things now. But back then, the CDs, they used to come also, some of them used to come with the little booklet, and the songs were there. And so pretty much I will listen to the song, I will put my CD, I will listen to the song, and I also, the song was already there in that little booklet, so I will read the song as I was listening. And if the songs were not written, I will just like either write it, or I will have like a friend of mine who did speak English to write the song for me, and then I will just sing along while also reading the song. And so that also helped me to learn English. So that is another tip. Okay, so let's see. We mentioned making mistakes, practicing, watching TV in English, listening to music. Okay, the next tip is don't be shy. And I know this is easier said than done. And I'm actually a shy person. And I have friends who say like, no, Karen, you're not shy. But then I do have friends who really know me really well, and they do know I am shy. They say no, you're just comfortable when you talk, you're confident and you talk and it seems that you're not shy, but because they know me so well, they do know that I am shy. But when it comes to learning a new language, even if you're shy, don't be shy. And what I mean by this is you gotta get out of your comfort zone. Again, what is your goal? Please give me a moment. I'm gonna put my baby to sleep in her bed because she is sleeping. Yeah. Get a leche. Prepara leche. Venga, venga. What are you watching? Get it, Mama. Get it. What are you watching? Okay, so she was falling asleep and then she heard her dad and Isaac, they are actually watching something, so she decided to go with them instead. Hopefully I'll be able to record this now. Okay, so where was I? Don't be shy. I am a shy person, but I'm gonna tell you this, and I constantly keep working on getting out of my comfort zone and just speaking, because when it comes to learning a new language, you have to expose yourself. So being shy and not talking and not exposing yourself is not going to help you. Okay? Even if you're naturally a shy person, take this from an introvert. I am an introvert. I enjoy spending time alone, and like I said, I am shy. But when it comes to learning a new language, speak the language. Imagine you are shy and then you have to practice. But then also you're afraid of making mistakes. This is why we're talking about this. I've lived this, okay? I've experienced this. I did it, you can do it too. Speak the language. Speak, even if you're shy. Practice. Now you can record yourself. Use the fun. The fun is a tool. It's not just for watching entertainment. YouTube is a tool when you use it wisely. YouTube is not just entertainment. It's entertainment also. But YouTube is a tool. You can learn a ton of stuff there. And one thing that I'm going to mention also is, if you're learning a language and you have an interest in a certain area, look the thing up in the language that you want to learn. And yes, you're gonna feel like totally lost, whatever. But then you can look up the same information in Spanish, okay? And little by little, you will start making connections. One thing that is amazing about English and Spanish, for example, if you're learning English and you speak either Spanish or French or Portuguese or Italian, what is the other language? These languages have something in common. They come from the roots of Latin and Greek. So these languages, they have a lot of things in common. Even words will be written the same, and it will mean the same. The only thing is the pronunciation will be different. But once you see the written word, you will know what it is. Like, oh, this is that, because it will be the same word in Spanish, or there will be a minor variation, and you still will know what it means. So that is the advantage in that sense, that if you speak one of these Romance languages, and you are learning English, then it will be easier in that sense. Still, it is English can be challenging because again of the sounds that you have to make. But you know, we were created really to embrace challenge. We were not created to just have, I know people now like want an easy life, but really when life is so easy, it becomes boring, and then you think like, what is my purpose in the world? Okay, so don't be afraid of the challenge. Don't be afraid of learning the new language, whichever the new language is. Okay, embrace the challenge. We were made to be challenged. We were made for that. At the beginning it will be difficult. Well, then we might go at a lower pace. We practice, but we're gonna get better at it. So don't be shy. Speak, even if you're shy, speak up, practice, use your tools, use the different tools that are to your advantage. So don't be shy brings me to the next point or the next tip. Don't let your ego get in the way of you learning English, of you learning a new language. Don't let your ego get in the way. And why do I say don't let your ego? Because sometimes we think we are shy, but maybe we're maybe it's just the pride. Oh, I will not put myself in that situation. Ego has its own topic because there are so many things involving ego that are so harmful to us humans. The thing with us humans is that we can be good at reasoning things and making excuses, and we can make excuses to our own detriment. We can make all the excuses we want in the world, but at the end of the day, are those excuses serving a purpose for us, a good purpose, or are they harming us? Don't let your ego get in the way. I can think of the Wright brothers, like they just were passionate and they wanted to build an airplane, that could fly. And they had this passion since they were kids. And I think that if they would have done it based on pride or ego, they probably would not have had the success. Maybe they would have, but it was not the ego that got them to be successful. It was passion and hard work and tenacity. And that's what we gotta remember. Gotta keep that ego in check, because ego is not gonna take you anywhere, especially when it comes to learning a new language. Okay, what do we have next? I have here on my computer bullet points of different things, different tips, because I don't want to miss anything, but if I do, I'll just mention it in another video. Okay, so next tip, keep learning. So depending on the location that you are, you will be learning English, you will be learning this new language. For some people, it can take a few months. Young people tend to learn very fast, but do not undermine older people. When people are passionate and they want to accomplish something, they can learn it at any age. And we now know that neuroplasticity allows us to keep learning for life, okay? Years ago, people used to think, it was thought that the brain had limits of learning and that it was fixed and that's it. And then science came up with the discovery of neuroplasticity, and it shows that you can keep learning for life. So it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, if you want to learn a new language, if you want to learn whatever you want to learn, you are able to do it. You can do it. Okay? That's the mentality that you have to have. You have to have patience also, because it's not going to happen overnight. And I remember back when I was learning the language, when I was learning English, a few months after I came to the States, I was able to speak a little bit more fluently. And about 5 months into being here in the United States, I actually got myself a part-time job after school. And I did not speak English very fluently yet. There was a lot that I did not understand, because the other thing is, when you are learning a new language, so people will think you are a slow person, that you have maybe a slow brain, because they're speaking to you probably in their original native language, but to you this is not your native language. So what you do is, when you are receiving the code of the English language or the new language into your brain, when they speak to you, you have to translate whatever they are telling you, that code that you are learning, which is the English language. You have to translate that code into your own language. So when I was learning English at the beginning, when I came to the United States, and people would speak to me in English, my brain had to process it. It had to process the information that it was receiving. I had to translate it to Spanish to make sense of it, to understand it. And then once I understood what they were telling me, then the words that I was going to speak to them, which I was thinking in Spanish, then I had to convert them to English. So it is a process, and this process, it might happen faster. That's why many people who are learning a new language, they say, please speak slowly. And that's the reason why. It's because for the person who is learning the language, we have to translate this code of the language that we are learning into the code that we've known all of our life, which is our native language. So, and sometimes, people might just think, like, people who do not understand about language, how language works, who are not bilingual or multilingual, they might just think you're stupid. It's okay. Don't let that bother you. But I'm telling you this because you need to understand this. And once you understand this, you're going to be comfortable with yourselves. Like, okay, this is just a process. You have no idea how many times I felt silly. And I remember actually one time going to my English teacher because I had an incident that day during physical education where two girls, they just made fun of me of my English. And when I went to my English class, I told my English teacher, Mr. Furby, what had happened. Pretty much bullies. I don't think that terminology was very popular back then, but pretty much two bullies just laughing at me. And so I told my teacher what had happened, and he asked me, how many languages do you speak? And I answered 2, because at that point it was 1.5 or maybe 1.25 back then. But I understood what he meant. He was like, how many languages you speak? Because I was learning also English and I spoke Spanish. And so I said 2. And then he asked me, and how many languages do those girls who made fun of you speak? And then ding, 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 it just clicked on me. They only spoke English. After that, every time someone will make fun of me for speaking English, funny or not, well spoken. I always thought about what Mr. Furby told me that day. And one thing that I learned, there is a difference in someone laughing with you because you sound funny, because the truth is, again, you may sound funny. You will sound funny when learning the new language, and there will be people who will laugh, but that does not mean that they are making fun of you or laughing at you. It's just you, it's funny. And so it sounds funny, you laugh, they laugh, but you can laugh too, because you know it does not come, it's not from harm. They don't mean anything ill. They're just like, you know, oh, that was funny. And then there will be other people who will be the bullies. Are you going to let a bully stop you from your goal? No, you are not. You're just going to keep talking, ignore the bullies, pretend you're not even listening to them. Keep learning. Keep learning. English is for life. When you acquire or when you're working to learn a new language, it's because you want to communicate. And so you're always going to keep learning. Even if you become proficient, even if you become fluent, you're always going to continue to learn. Enjoy the journey. Learning a new language is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a lifelong journey. If you want to keep the language you will be learning, it's a lifelong journey. And the last thing that I'm going to mention, and it is the most important, I am a believer. I believe in God. I pray to God to help me conquer. And so the one thing that I'm going to say is pray. Ask God to help you, to open your mind to the new learning, to give you wisdom, and to put in you the motivation, and just continuously keep asking for that, for the strength, and just keep practicing, keep showing up, even if you don't feel like it, even if you feel demotivated. Some days you may want to give up on learning. Don't. Maybe on those days you'll take it a little bit easier, but just keep practicing, keep learning, keep embracing it. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. Persevere, persist. Do not give up. I hope that these tips helped. I did not want this video to be so long, but anyway, these are tips from someone who came at the age of 15 to the United States and learned the language from scratch. And it's a language that I love. Actually, today it is my strongest language, even than Spanish. I have to start reading books in Spanish to expand my Spanish vocabulary. Most of the books that I read are in English, and I love the English language. So you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. I love language in general. I think language is such a beautiful thing. It's a bridge between cultures. It's a bridge that brings people together from different language and cultures. And I just love language. I think being able to communicate in different languages is a great blessing. And it's actually a great advantage because you're able to communicate with more people. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you for watching. Till next time, God bless you. Bye.